Hi guys, welcome to Snakes and Adders. This is another episode in our intermediate series. In this series we deal with species that could maybe be considered next step species. So they're not quite suitable for the beginner. They might be slightly bigger in size or slightly more testy in temperament, such as this little chap. So today we're going to be discussing the Macklot python, aka the lesser Sunders python or the freckled python. Latin name is Liasis mackloti mackloti. First described by Dummeril Bibron in 1844, and we talked about Dummeril Bibron in the Argentine black and white tegu series because they described that as well. And this species was one of an amazing 1,393 species described by Dummeril Bibron. It's an amazing feat, absolutely amazing. These guys were taxonomic badasses. The species was named in honor of German naturalist Heinrich Christian Macklot, born in Frankfurt in 1799. In 1822, he joined something called the Rijksmuseum, which is the Natural History Museum of the Netherlands, along with fellow Germans Heinrich Boy and Solomon Müller. They were sent by the museum to collect specimens in the East Indies, and Macklot subsequently visited New Guinea and Timor in 1828 and to 1830. He was subsequently killed during insurgency in Java in 1832, and he was only 33 years old. So that's amazing, you know, that he achieved so much by such a young age when he very sadly lost his life. But it was a very tumultuous time in the East Indies. As well as the powerhouse pair of Dummeril and Bibron honouring Heinrich Macklot, another gentleman called Jacob Temminck of alligator snapping turtle fame, namely Macrochelys temnicki, which is the alligator snapping turtle, named the Sunders fruit bat after Heinrich Macklot as well, which is Acerodon mackloti. Depending on where you look, you'll either see it as a monotypic species or it's part of a set of 3 different subspecies, this being the nominate form. Liasis mackloti mackloti, which is this. Liasis mackloti dunni, which is the wet-R python. Liasis mackloti savuensis, which is the Savu python, Savu Island python, or white-eyed python. Various reclassifications took place since the initial Liasis mackloti in 1844 of Dummeril and Bibron. Solomon Müller, who was also in Timor with Macklot, described it as Python timorensis, also in 1844. Now, confusingly, there is a Python timoriensis, the Timor python. This is a different species altogether, and it was first described 32 years after this species, and it was first described as Liasis amethystinus variant timoriensis. But would later be known as Python or Malaya Python timoriensis. We'll cover this species at a later date if we're lucky enough to get one in stock. Anyway, back to the story. Further changes were Liasis mackloti by Gray in 1849, Python timorensis by Müller again in 1857, he's pushing the point here, Liasis mackloti by Boulanger in 1893, Liasis mackloti by Werner in 1897, Liasis mackloti, but spelt very weirdly, which is M-A-C-L-O-T-I, by Barber in 1912. Then subsequently to Morelia mackloti by Underwood and Stimpson in 1990, so that placed it with the carpet pythons. And there's another weird one. Where are we now? Oh, sorry, I've skipped some. Stull was the first to introduce the subspecies Dunni and Savuensis in 1932 by recognising the 3 separate subspecies, which is kind of the way that I've done it here in this video as well. And then Wells and Wellington in 1985 described it as Lisalia mackloti, and then it changed to Morelia mackloti by Underwood and Stimpson in 1990, putting it with the carpet pythons. Finally, Cluj returned it to Liasis mackloti in 1993. Type locality of the Macklot's python is given as Timor by Brongersma in 1968. Now, Brongersma is another person honoured with a python in his name, and this taking the shape of the red blood python, Python Brongersma, which is another stunning species, which we'll cover, or we may have covered. I think we might have only done Borneo so far. So when we get reds, we'll do the reds as well, because they're super cool. So yeah, that's Python brongisma in honor of Brongisma, who gave the type locality for this wonderful species as Timor. So we looked up some weather data on timeanddate.com. I give this website all the time to customers in the shop, and I keep giving it on these videos. I hope people are using it, because you can put in almost anywhere and they will use the weather charts and weather data from the aerodromes of the local area to chart rainfall, daytime high, nighttime low. This is absolutely priceless when it comes to working out what we're supposed to be doing with the husbandry of our animals. The hot season is from October to December, with a daytime high of 32 to 33 degrees Celsius and a nighttime low of 24 to 25 degrees Celsius. The cool season is from June to September, with a daytime high of 31 Celsius and a nighttime low of 20 to 21 Celsius. The naturally occurring wet season coincides with the hot season, at peaks at nearly 200 millimeters in a single month in January alone. This stands in stark contrast to the almost desert-like dry season of July to September, where rain all but stops altogether and we fall to single digits like 6 and 8 millimeters. It's crazy. So this is potentially down to the positioning of Timor. Oh, that was a good one, right on the end. Oh. So yeah, I'm wearing gloves because they don't like the taste of latex, so they prefer the taste of my flesh, as all snakes seem to. So this is just to try and dissuade them from keeping cold, because you really don't want the taste of it, do you? You don't like it, no. You seem keen on my beard as well. So down to the positioning of Timor. Yes, hello, you're not going to be hurt. To the northeast is Papua New Guinea, Irian Jaya. To the northwest is Indonesia, both very rainforest orientated, very moist, very humid. And then to the south of that, we have the Northern Territory and Kimberley regions of Northern Australia. The Kimberley region in particular being incredibly dry and giving way to the desert regions of Australia. So this might sort of explain, you know, why the land masses, we get this such extreme wet, such extreme dry. This does lend itself, and this fluctuation in rainfall and fluctuation therefore in humidity lends itself to us trying to breed and reproduce this species, because there doesn't need to really be anything subtle about the changes we make. It can literally be an all or nothing season, and that's pretty much replicated by nature. So the fact that they could be so easily bred, I mean, with a gentle nighttime drop, relatively stable daytime highs, and then a spiked humidity level to raise the humidity up, mature animals will invariably lock and breed. They're not a complex species to breed whatsoever. And in fact, in the early, mid to late 90s, they were everywhere, and they were retailing in stores for as little as 45 to 50 pounds and changing hands for even less than that on the private market. As with all things, as the genetics takes over and the genetics boom takes over, these guys fall by the wayside. Nobody's working with them anymore, and as a result they're far more scarce and the prices have recovered significantly, reflecting how difficult they can be to find nowadays. As people work with them though, this will be fleeting due to how easy they are to breed. As a side note, this is in stark contrast to their cousin, the Savo Island python, who has somewhat of a reputation as a pain in the arse to get to breed in captivity, whereas we can get eggs, but fertility seems to be an ongoing issue. But that's another story for another day when we get the Savos back in stock. Macklot's pythons, as with all pythons, are egg layers, and they'll have between 10 to 18 eggs per clutch. These are incubated at 32 degrees Celsius for 60 days in a 4:1 ratio mix of vermiculite to water. See our incubator building guide, which we did in the Snakes and Adders Reptile Advice series, so that you can get guides on how to incubate your eggs correctly. After hatching and shedding, there is a little delay until feeding begins due to large yolk... Hello, again. Look. There's nothing interesting in my hand. Due to large yolk reserves upon being born. So we can expect somewhat of a delay before the animals kick in feeding. But feeding generally is non-problematic and they feed readily and grow very, very fast. These babies though, as with a lot of the Indo-pythons, whether it's the Bismarcks or the white lips or the Albertus as you might know them, they have paper thin skin, and this can cause bad sheds, and they're chronically sensitive to low humidity, so it's best to keep them probably in a rack system, which lends itself to higher humidity for the first 6 to 12 months whilst they harden up and grow and put their weight on. After such time, these rules seem to bend and they're far hardier as adults or sub-adults. So first year of age, we'll treat them with kid gloves and keep them in a racking system. The maximum quoted size is around 10 feet, but this is almost unheard of. I mean, an accurately measured 8-foot female would be considered a serious unit, and a 7-foot male the same. Breeding trials can commence from 3 years of age and 6 feet plus in length, males possibly even sooner. Temperament in youngsters is invariably grumpy. We'll call it grumpy. But if you work with them and you maintain regular contact and we keep up handling and keep up appearances, you will be rewarded with a charmingly tame and personable snake. And realistically, all this snake is doing is reflecting a lot of the temperaments of the baby carpet pythons, which are so popular within the hobby. They're incredibly testy as babies, but as adults they're wonderfully tame and easy to work with, and these snakes are exactly the same. If you keep up the relationship, they will stay tame. If you start to slip or start to not handle them, they may slip up into old habits. This is an almost textbook example of what would make a perfect next step snake, alongside common boas and carpet pythons, but this would definitely be the far more left field choice for sure. You could do far worse than own one of these cracking little snakes. Overall colour is a mixture of golds and browns, tans. We have a light coloured yolk yellow to lemon yellow belly, maybe with some slight flecking. We tend to find that the Savo Island pythons have a white eye rather than a gold eye, and a far more orange in their... Yeah, you're regretting that now, aren't you? You're stuck on my glove. Thank you. Far more orange in the flanks and sides, whereas the dun eye tends to be more silver with blacker patches, and it's a bit more of a patchwork quilt pattern on the Dunn's python. I've only ever had one example of a Dunn's python in 27 years. So, superb species. Definitely do your research. Liasis mackloti, a wonderful, wonderful species. Definitely worthy of being worked with, and you could do far worse. You just might have to forgive them for being somewhat grumpy as babies. We'll see you all again soon with another video where we discuss some of the fantastic species that we can get in this hobby. From Chaz and Paul at Snakes and Adders, peace.